to cloud here. So
All right.
I'm recording to the cloud here. I'm going to give it back to you and see if it keeps recording to the cloud.
That's a great idea. Okay, it's still recording, Dina.
Okay.
Hey, Charlotte, are you there? Can you hear us? 'Cause I can't hear you.
Kelly,
Yeah.
feel free to pop in with questions or comments for Steve. You're much more perceptive than I. So.
Oh, that's okay. You sound a little far away. I was wondering, not that you need to back up or anything, it's just your volume. Can you turn your volume up?
I don't know how I would do that.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But before, you actually sounded better. Do you have earphones in?
No, I don't have any earphones.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I can hear you and everything's fine.
But it's not as loud as.
It's a little garbly, like you're in the garbage can there by your desk.
I don't know what that's about. Has it always been that way?
No, it wasn't before.
It shouldn't have anything to do with my camera falling off.
Unless you got audio, I don't know. One of these days I'm going to come over in a garbage bag and help you figure things out. I'll just wrap myself completely in duct tape and
you better bring the sleeping bag because it'll take a while.
I'll drink a vial of holy water and ask for Dana's, absolution of any sins that I've committed, and then I'll come on over.
Why does my identification under participants say in params me afterward?
Because everybody's does.
Oh, okay.
I'm me over here and you're me over there.
Okay, well, I was afraid that me is showing to everybody, and that's.
No, it's not a me thing. It's just one me, and you're out. Oh, there we go. There's
I'm.
Hello, Phyllis, coming on in.
I'm not seeing anybody else now.
Yeah, lots of people have turned off their video. It's okay.
No, I'm not even seeing names. Well, there are only 6 participants, so I guess that's. Yeah, I am seeing the names. Okay.
Good morning, Phyllis and Dave.
Now you can say good morning.
Now I can say good morning.
Yeah.
All right. And David D is coming on in. It's like, when the team comes to the field and they call your name and you run through the gauntlet.
Yeah.
It's like, and now Dana's here and yay!
Okay.
Charlotte's here. Oh, Teresa's in the waiting room. I gotta pay attention, y'all. Well, I wish there was a little bell that told me when they were waiting on me.
Or like they used to have those little squirrels or bunny rabbits or kittens down below, and they would jump up and down and something was going on.
You know better than to have a squirrel jumping up and down around me. Squirrel!
Sounds a little squirrely to me.
Oh, I'm going to introduce you to this hilarious website called Beyond the Punderdome. It is hilarious. I love puns. My dad was like that. He loved them too.
The punnier, the better, right?
Oh boy. Let the drinking begin there. Good morning, Anna.
You're on mute, Anna. Anna, unmute. Thank you. You're welcome.
There you are.
I was like, Anna, I am learning sign language, but and I do read lips, but
But not, well, I'm trying to help you out a little bit. See?
yeah. Well, most of the words that I've been uttering lately, you don't want to translate. I'm a little more happy today. Thanks be to God.
Yes. Yeah.
That's my last comment. That's not fair to people who aren't on the same team. Everybody's on Jesus's team.
Right.
Right.
All right, here comes Diane, the stars of our show, Diane and Steve.
Good morning, Mr. Dryman.
Hey, David. How are you feeling, sir?
I feel
Good morning. I'm
awesome.
feeling well, thank you.
Good.
This
We're
is
praying for you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mission has now been totally overhauled.
Good. Did you get a new warranty or is it just past 100,000?
Yeah, there's no warranty, sadly.
Yeah, well, but you go to a really cool junkyard afterwards, don't you?
Hope so, TBD.
All your parts are salvageable and worthy.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Mm-hmm. There's
But
a
thanks
pound
for the,
dog. It's known as the Hound of Heaven.
I'm sorry, what?
There's a pound dog like every other junkyard, except this one's the Hound of Heaven.
Yes.
This is Gretchen's new house. Whoa,
Wait, just rattled.
she's up at,
Massachusetts and Rhode Island.
Hey, Gretchen, I can see you a little better. Good morning, Liz.
I turned on another light. Okay.
That's good. It's always good to have light.
Is this, are you
Comes
looking at-
Camille.
No, it's okay right now.
Okay.
Good morning. I was muted before when I said good morning.
That's okay. Lots of folks stay muted.
You're allowed to talk.
Good morning, Joyce. Glad to see you there.
Yes, good to see you.
Good morning.
Yes. Good
Everybody.
morning, Joyce.
Good morning,
Good
Camille.
morning, Camille.
Wow, 14 people.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
have a quorum and a minion. How about that?
And it's 9:15 by my clock, so maybe we should begin.
Yeah, can everybody hear Gretchen?
yeah, she said something about begin.
That means you're on there, Diane and Steve.
Well,
Okay.
Steve's older than
I
me.
keep getting that my internet connection is not stable. That keeps coming up.
Oh, we
Yeah,
can hear you guys. Great.
This is Joyce.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the internet is quite compromised this morning all over the world. And
Oh, sure.
anything that we're doing.
Oh.
So if you'll mute, it might slow it down. And if you're really having trouble, I hate to say it, but take off your video.
Now I can't hear anything.
Mm.
Call back in.
Joyce, can you dial back in?
Hmm.
I don't think she
She
can.
can't hear you, so that's a lost cause.
Yeah,
She's gone. Oh, there she is.
she's here.
Hi, Joyce.
Yeah.
She can't.
Can you hear me still?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
but I don't think she can
I'm
hear.
not muted.
Yeah,
We can hear you.
but I don't think she can hear us.
Hey, honey, come back in.
I'm gonna text her for a second here, and then we'll get going.
So Gretchen, do you want us to start? Gretchen?
will. I will.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll take care of all this.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with two pieces of connection that we have to nativity, and they're both works of art. And we don't probably normally think of nativity as a storehold of a lot of art, but there are two pieces. One is a batik of Jesus that hangs out in our gathering area around the
Easter time.
yeah, at Easter time around the baptismal font, right outside the sanctuary. And it's the purple batik of Jesus. It was given to Diane and I as a wedding present, I think, from my cousin Anne, who's a Presbyterian missionary in Chennai, in China.
In China?
I'm sorry, in southern India. And she, let's see. Okay, so she's Presbyterian missionary in southern India. Oh, and she's working with kind of more peace and justice issues, particularly working with the outcast community, the Dalit, and educating young girls so that they can have opportunities that would not normally be available to them. Her father, my mother's brother, was also a Presbyterian minister. We're going to hit this Presbyterian theme pretty strong here this morning. And so, small world that we have a fellow worshiper at Nativity who is also from Chennai. That's Frank Gordon, and I don't know if he's on here this morning or not, but that's an interesting connection in our little community. The other piece of work is a Watanabe print that Mary Beth Robinson donated to Nativity, and that is a work by a Japanese artist who works in natural pigments. Diane and I happen to have one that we inherited from my mother. So that's right in the background here. And my parents happen to be Presbyterian missionaries in Japan. There's that Presbyterian connection again. Mom was raised here in Minnesota, became a public health nurse and was planning to do mission work in China. That's where that China connection was. And so she ended up in language school to prepare for that mission. China was closed about that time by Mao, and she was not able to go there, but she met my dad, and who was studying to go to Japan, and joined him, and they went to Japan. And this was right after World War II. Anyway, that gets to my dad. His father, my grandpa, converted to Catholicism so that he could marry my grandma. It turns out they were not particularly devout, but my dad got the call, and as he said that as a teenager, he would sneak out of the house on Sunday morning and go to the local Presbyterian church. Anyway, he ended up being a conscientious objector in World War II and did his alternative service with the Quakers, working with the Japanese communities in California during World War II. So right after World War II, then he and Mom went to Japan as Presbyterian missionaries, and Mom says that she thinks I was the first American born in a Japanese civilian hospital after the war. And their mission,
1948.
1948, their mission started out, I think, pretty traditional in terms of an intent towards converting Japanese and building churches. One of the stories I've heard was harrowing Jeep ride that took a week when I was a year old to Nagasaki and Hiroshima with YMCA camps that were cleaning up the rubble after the atomic bombing. But anyway, being in Japan, there was a significant missionary community from all kinds of different denominations. And so I had exposure to a lot of different Christian denominations, as well as exposure to, you know, the local Buddhism and Shintoism, and plus a lot of Judaism in our among my cohorts, children of expats that were ended up in Japan. Anyway, this Christian community would tend to gather up at lake in the Japan Alps, and one of my favorite early memories is of gathering on boats and going out onto the lake in the summer for hymn sings on Sunday night, and those hymns would then drift across the water to those who were still back on the shore. So that was a pretty impressionant thing for a child. Mom continued her work in medicine, working for free in medical research. Dad's focus shifted away from that traditional missionary role into more addressing the issues of the outcast community. That's the Burakumin in Japan. Orienting more towards liberation theology and developing an idea that American Christianity would really benefit from a reverse mission where the gospel was revealed to us through the experiences of others, like the outcast Christian community in Japan. So he wrote a book. It's in Japanese, so you can't understand it, but there's a diagram of how that reverse mission would work. There's an English translation if you'd like to read that. So anyway, that turns out interesting that there's this connection of working in outcast communities between my father and in Japan and my cousin in India. So this is one of the things that draws me to Nativity, is that we're not, I'm on this reverse mission thing, that we're not overly dogmatic on insisting on our understanding of the gospel, and quite open to hearing the voices of others outside our denomination in order to understand the gospel. I would cite it as an example, the pilgrimage that Jean organized for us to visit the George Floyd Memorial a few weeks ago. I don't know if she's on. But I'm very glad that we have Jean on our team to bring that type of perspective and faith to us. As you know, not just the two of us, but our extended family, including especially our grandchildren. And then I double down on that with the work that you, Gretchen, are doing with these adult education programs to bring in the voices of others. You know, particularly work we've done in the past with other faith traditions. One of my first impression encounters with this tension between knowing and inquiring was at the end of high school. And I guess a couple of us seniors would be asked every year to say a few words at the church service. It's the local Methodist church in Japan, where I went to school. And the other senior was Chris George, and he's recently published a CD of Christian music that he's written. But he talked about his firm faith, and I just talked about my doubts. And my recollection is that his sharing was a lot more enthusiastic and energetically received than my words about my doubts. Anyway, I really like that part about in our communion service where where we state that the strength of the welcome to the table is not a function of our faith, just a function of our inquiring. So anyway, after attending a Presbyterian liberal arts college in Ohio, hello all you Ohio people, Rowleys,
Worcester.
and experiencing, that was during the social upheaval of the 60s. My first wife, who eventually became a Presbyterian minister, her father, who was a Presbyterian minister, married us. Anyway, we ended up joining a small Episcopal church in Worcester, and I'm struggling to remember how we found our way into that small Episcopal community, given all of our roots in a Presbyterian background. But that was where I first connected with the Episcopalian Church. I think it was probably the warmth of the members of that parish, rather than any doctrine or ideology that drew us there. We moved from Ohio to Minnesota, like the Rowleys, and stayed with the Episcopal Church, joining St. Matthew's in Roseville, which was near the university. One of the things that I remember from that was getting involved in a charismatic subculture, speaking in tongues, being very conservative, including objecting to the homosexuality of my sister, which I, in retrospect, deeply regret adopting those positions. We pivoted to a congregation that the Holy Trinity that worshiped at the University Episcopal Center, which had a fairly high Sunday church service, smells and bells, but also a strong peace and justice focus. So at the same time, I was continuing to pursue my studies in agriculture at the university. I felt the calling to a vocation around plant breeding and food security. I didn't have to go through a discernment committee to, hi Kelly, to, let's see, deeper understanding what that calling was, but it was driven by, the engagement in the movement during the 60s, particularly my reading of Ehrlich and Ehrlich's The Population Bomb, and what's going to happen in this world. And so that led me to a career in science, and I'd say understanding the world through the scientific method rather than through the revealed word. I went through a depressing divorce, but remained connected with that small congregation at Holy Trinity St. Ansgar, and that was probably only, a dozen, maybe 24 people, and that's something I brought from what my father taught me, that it isn't the number of congregants that you have in the pews. Hello, Dana. It's just that there is a congregation.
Amen.
Amen.
And anyway, with a lot of therapy and soul searching, I came out of that divorce and happily met Diane at a singles bar. This was before the time of online dating. And so I'll pass it to her to pick up this thread of the story from there.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I was raised Lutheran and had a really good experience as a child growing up in the Lutheran church. It wasn't that I was looking for something other than the Lutheran church. I had a great, like I said, a great experience. Youth groups and retreats and all that, and all my friends were there, and yeah, it was a wonderful, small town of 1,000 people, so everybody knew everyone. But I, went to college, and I don't know, I never connected with a church on my own. I never sought it out, and I don't really know why. The only time I'd go to church was when I'd go home to Hayfield, and I'd go to church with my parents and my family. Otherwise, I don't know. I just never, as an adult, looked for my own church. My mother kept bugging me to, would you please, drop your membership, because they had to pay to the Lutheran church if you were on the membership rolls. And I would just stay on Hayfield Trinity Lutheran's rolls, and she was always after me to drop out, but I didn't have any place to transfer it to, so I never did. So yeah, I met Steve at a disco, and he was going to church. It was like, man, it was the first, man that I had dated that was actually going to church. I thought, yeah, that was actually one of the things that impressed me about him, besides him being terrifically good looking and educated, and he was a really dedicated father. He had 2 little kids that he was pretty much single parenting. His ex-wife would come in and out, but she had moved by that point to out east. And so there were several things that attracted me to him, but one of them was that he was a person of faith. And I had been in relationships where, the person didn't have any faith, and that luckily didn't go anywhere. I didn't marry anyone else, but that was one of the things I thought, well, for once, my values are lining up with this person. So I started going to church with him at Holy Trinity St. Ansgar at UEC. And then that congregation, that building was sold, and we moved to the West Bank. And that was a really interesting time. They tended to be either old hippies or intellectuals, or people like Mary Shepard, who was one of the founding members of Women Against Military Madness. So it was a congregation that was just very involved in social justice. And we went on to have 2 little more boys, and they were baptized in that congregation. And I remember, feeling bad because I had these 2 babies and I couldn't be out, protesting and doing all this stuff that this congregation was always doing. but they really, accepted me. And I remember Bishop, he wasn't a bishop then, but Steve Charleston saying to me that, not to feel bad because what I was doing as a, raising the next generation was the most important thing in the world. I thought, oh, wow, okay. But yeah, this congregation really took me in. I mean, Steve was already a part of it, but I remember at a retreat once when it was probably the first few months that I was with this congregation. We went on a retreat to Spring Cliffs over on the St. Croix River. And some of us had went out for a beer. Steve was not there. And that was the first time that I heard that they were all really upset with me because I was taking the only eligible bachelor in the group. And they were like, but they were very nice and we had a good time, and they're still some just very important people to me. So then our kids were starting to get older. We would drive, up to the university. Well, actually we were on the West Bank then above the Cedar Riverside Cafe. So we would drive up every, Sunday and, go to church. And after a while that was starting to get, a little bit old because by this point we had moved to Apple Valley, which was halfway between my job at Abbott Northwestern. So I drive up to Minneapolis. Steve, being in agriculture, would go south to Farmington. And so that's how we ended up in Apple Valley. So for the first time we were in the suburbs out of the city, and it was just a difficult, transition. We loved it here, but I guess we didn't look for the same kind of community, not thinking that we would find it here. So we continued to drive up there to get that kind of, more inner city, liberal theology, social justice kinds of fixes. I remember many people saying that they would come to church Sunday just to get recharged to go out, to fight the rest of the week. I think that's what held us there for a long, long time. But as our two younger ones, as the kids started to get older, it was like, we really need to find a community. I mean, we are here. We're not in Minneapolis. We're in Apple Valley, and we need to find a community here. Especially for the kids to, go to Sunday school, be in youth groups, all of that. So, so because we had been at UEC, then we looked for an Episcopal church, and there was only one to choose from. So
Martha and Mary too.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's true. We did visit Martha and Mary, but we ended up at Nativity, and I think the reason that we did was Alan Tilson was there at the time. We were, we could see that, their hearts were in the right place. They were doing family table, and that was really important to me, that I could see some sort of, outreach. And we just felt like we, found our home. And the kids, Elliot especially, who still comes to church, was very involved in youth group and tech and all of that. And he had a really, good experience with growing up at Nativity. Calvin, not so much, though he still, I think, goes down record. I think it was George who said that he was the best, what do you call it? Carrying the cross.
Oh.
Anyway. That what?
Crucifer.
Crucifer. Thank you. He was the best crucifer they ever had because he was so serious about it, and he would hold it the correct way, and he would have it way up. But somewhere along the line, he, as a teenager, decided that conflict between science and religion, and this just didn't make any sense to him. And so I stopped fighting with him. about coming to church. But anyway, it's been, you know, home for us. I've been on the vestry a couple times, once in the old church and once here in our present location. I've been involved in a lot of different things, fellowship. I used to decorate for the gala. Boy, do I miss that this year. Of course, we couldn't have done it anyway, but and then the outreach is still part of that. I was part representing the church in the Depression Support Coalition, and that has ended, but I'm now representing the church in the interfaith care creation care group. I'm part of this group, for the adult education, and there's something else that I do too. I don't know. A lot of my meetings and everything revolve around nativity. So yeah, I think that we've you know, really, you know, felt the evolution of our relationship and our lives through the church, and nativity has been a, you know, huge part of that.
Diane, you've been involved in the garden. Don't forget about that.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
And the garden tour.
And the garden tour. Yeah, it's part of fellowship. Yeah.
Well, I'm interested in, you are a multi-generational nativity family, which is wonderful to see you in church with children and grandchildren. And you're a multinational nativity family. I find that just fascinating. And we haven't heard anything about Steve's travels through his work and the culture, excuse me, the culture of the people that he deals with, the Chilean people. You're not hearing me well.
Yeah, you're a little muffled, Gretchen. Your speaker is a little muffled.
I don't know how to do that, so.
Yeah, but we can still hear you.
Okay. So tell us, Steve, about your travels and your work.
Well, I work for a multinational seed company that is now owned by the Chinese government, and as a plant breeder, and in sweet corn. And so I travel quite a bit, because up till COVID, because sweet corn is grown around the world, and I've got to go see the crops where it's grown, and particularly where we grow a generation here in the summer. Right now, I'm shelling seed that we've harvested from our summer nurseries and preparing it to ship down to Chile, where we run counter season nurseries, so we can grow 2 generations a year. And so I chase summer like skiers chase the snow, you know. But 2 things about that, traveling back and forth from Chile. One was when I first started going down there, which is,
well, I wouldn't let you go to begin with because
Yeah.
Pinochet was still in.
Yeah.
In
but that was
power.
like the first year, so maybe
Yeah,
30
first 2
years
years.
ago.
Yeah.
Was that this country was coming out of that military dictatorship, coming out of a difficult time. Its economy was in a shambles, wasn't very good, but it was starting to build. all of which was reminiscent of what I grew up around in Japan after the war, where it was an economic shambles and was just starting to rebuild. And so Chile, you know, you go down the street and there's just electric wires and stuff on poles and all along the side of the buildings, and it's just a rat's nest of wires all over the place. And it just, to me, felt like going back home. If you go to Japan now, it's very developed, and you know, first world. It's not like it was when I grew up there. So it was fun to go to Chile and rediscover something that was semblance of what I experienced in my childhood. The other thing was we took an opportunity to Diane and I to take the kids, Elliot and Calvin, down there for a summer, a Chilean summer, which was a winter here, and Diane coordinated with the school to make sure that they're getting all their lesson plans. And you know, here it's summer vacation, but they're in school, keeping up with their schoolwork. But we ended up exposing our kids then to a lot of international experience along the way, and you know, end up with one kid in Spain. We've got another McGregor's in Thailand, and so we've got grandchildren there now in both places. One of whom we have yet to meet because of the COVID travel restrictions.
Yeah, we often said that we showed our kids that they were citizens of the world, and they believed us. They took us up on it, unfortunately, and didn't stay down on the farm and close to us. So, oh well.
But we do have Elliot living in the house right behind us, not that little Japanese looking shed, but the house down the hill there. So we're kind of in a nice little family compound here. We have our little bubble, COVID bubble that we live in, pod.
Yeah.
So you have lived your faith certainly with all the work that you've done. I'm pleased that you're sharing that with us. Are there any questions from any other participants here? Let's hear from some of the rest of you.
Yeah, everyone is muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
Camille?
Well, I really appreciate your story and have found it so interesting. I wonder how you seem to have brought your kids up in the church. Can you tell us more about your experience with that through Nativity or elsewhere?
Yeah, we did. Our two oldest were, you know, more in Holy Trinity, St. Ansgar. You know, we have many stories of them. Eric was our oldest, was quite the
challenge.
Yeah, he, you know, was more on the ADHD kind of. So we, everybody would remember him, you know, being just naughty and crawling underneath things. And but you know, they tolerated the kids really well. And you know, even like that community would do the Easter Vigil, you know, like at midnight. I mean, we wouldn't get out of church until, man, 2 in.the.morning, but we would just bring the kids in their pajamas and have them sleep on the floor and all of that. So and those two kids also had the experience of their mother, who is a Presbyterian minister married to a UEC pastor. So there's two pastors on that side, plus the grandparents. And so all of those two especially have been very, very brought up in, having lots of experiences with the church. We always called them the big boys and the little boys. The little boys were mostly brought up in nativity. And as I said, Elliot, remains I think he's only one of the four that I would say would go to church routinely. 3 of the 4 would profess to be Christians.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is a missionary kid, and I think he's the only one of his family.
Well, yeah, missionary kids are notorious for
going.
It's
the
like,
way.
yeah, principals' kids at school are the same way,
Yeah.
PKs, they call
So, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of nativity too, is sharing having the children in the sanctuary with us. And all the noise and commotion and everything that they make is just so welcome.
Always has been.
Yeah, always has.
Our kids, when they were living in England for a year, and they didn't do church much, but it seemed as if you had children, you were welcome to sit in the back of the church and keep them under control.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember in the church I grew up in, they had a glassed-in room in the back with speakers so that you could take your babies and your children in there, the little ones that weren't in Sunday school. But yeah, and the kids weren't, I think they were in Sunday school. I don't think they were in church. And so, yeah, the Episcopal Church, both of them that we were involved in, the kids were right in the service. And they were full members, to accept communion from the time they were babies. I remember, like Bill Teska, communing my babies, giving them drops of wine. And I remember the first time when he baptized Calvin and gave him wine, and Calvin was like, "Whoa!" He made this this little wow kind of sound, and I thought, "Oh boy, I'm in trouble."
Well, I know I love hearing the babies and children in the back or throughout the church.
Yep.
I really add something to the atmosphere.
Yeah.
That's what.
Or dancing in the church.
Yeah. Yep. And for me, that day when David Haas was performing for us and Caroline went up and was just dancing up in front.
I love it.
There's that tension of, as being the responsible adult that, I should go up and pull her away because she's being a distraction,
Yeah.
No.
Emily tried. Caroline was having nothing of it.
No, it helps everybody take part more, I think. Get in the spirit of things more.
Yeah.
Not a distraction.
Yeah.
And that's what church is all about. If the next generation doesn't continue, we're done.
Yeah, that's true.
But for nativity, again, I mean, that repeats that theme I'm talking about of it not being rigid.
Well, and if we believe the sign that we have that says all are welcome, that includes the little ones too.
Yeah.
As well as the gray hairs.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't say all well behaved, and thank God, or I couldn't.
Well, and it's a bigger reflection, I think. I mean, we're a microcosm in a larger society, but that all are welcome doesn't just mean you will be tolerated. It means that we really have something to learn from you. And so we need all of you to come in and be part of us.
Yeah. Well said.
I think that because we are not able to receive Eucharist and gather at the table, that we are really pushing the boundaries of what does it mean to belong, and that when we do finally come to the table, it is going to be such a banquet of celebration because we are deepening our
gonna bust.
relationships with each other and through these stories. And as Dana says, we are the body of Christ. We're not waiting to receive it; it's already here. And these stories just, just really, bring that home.
And we celebrate Eucharist every time we gather together, by the way. It's
Right.
our being together.
Right.
So have some coffee.
So that brings up my next comment. Thank you so much, Diane and Steve, for being with us this morning and sharing your fascinating stories. We really appreciate it. I would invite any of you who would like to share your story with us to get in touch with somebody on our committee, which would be Diane or Christina or Kelly or me, or certainly Dana.
Yeah, and thank you, Gretchen, for persisting and continuing to get these stories out.
I can't tell you who we have for next Sunday, but we will have somebody, so come and see.
I think, what is it the 15th? I think the 15th, we're going to ask Phyllis and David as backup.
David is, and Dave Dryman is going to.
No, the Rowley, the guy next to her there.
This one.
In November, Dave Dryman will talk to us one Sunday as well. So
some Sunday, yeah.
Yep. So
is that kind of like I am Jill's husband? Yeah.
Yeah. What is that I heard of? First, second husband. Or something. It was small f, I guess, on the first. Second husband. Because I guess the other is called the second lady. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if anybody wants to do this, we can either do a video of you. I wouldn't mind interviewing you on Zoom and then recording it and then showing it, or you can do it live like they have. There's been different formulas for this, and we're doing our best to record them, but it can be tricky, and and often we're not able to figure out what went wrong. So please, just be patient with us as we try to kind of weave this all together as well as our stories. But
we really love the stories, and I'm so sorry we missed recording a couple, but they were all great. Thank you so much, those of you who shared.
Right.
Anna, Cara, all y'all.
Well, Gretchen, is there anything else you think we need to do here?
I think we've covered it. If anybody has a question, speak now or.
Yeah, raise your hand.
Otherwise, we can.
Or any announcements?
Yeah, any announcements.
From anybody?
So we have a few minutes, 10 minutes maybe to chat, and then some time to reflect on what we've heard and what we were going to hear in the church service, and prelude from our organist, and then we'll launch into church. And you'll have to get out of this Zoom meeting or into the church meeting.
Right.
I would just like to comment that way back when I first knew the Griers, I was always just amazed that Steve was always going off to Chile or, some exotic place that I would never think about going. So,
and his poor wife was left at home with 4 children.
Glad to hear the backstory on that. So thank you for sharing.
Well, we're getting to know your house very well, and I think a fundraiser for the parish when we're safe is give us a tour of all the artwork you have hanging around. I'd be willing to contribute for that.
Yeah, the kanji piece above the Watanabe print basically says all are welcome here. I mean,
Oh,
that's not literal, but basically that's what it says. And
Very
that hung, I think, in your dad's church. And I think the Watanabe print, if I remember right, was given to him on his retirement.
Oh,
He had always promised, or the deal was when he retired, that they would return to the US, though he never wanted to leave. And so at age 62, when he retired, he had a stroke, boarding the plane to come back to Japan or back to the US. So he died in Japan. So when we got the call, his younger brother, who was living still in Japan at the time, said, "Yep, the old man didn't want to leave, never wanted to leave." But yeah, he was very, very revered there, very revered. So for all his work, it really was. He had found his people really, which was interesting. And as tall as Steve is, his dad was very short. There's Louis.
oh.
But his dad was more of the Japanese stature. So, but anyway, that's the artwork that you see all the time. His mother was a collector and brought everything back.
Well,
His
thank you
dad
guys for sharing. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
And we'll look forward to hearing from Phyllis and Dave next week. Yeah, go ahead and jump out of here and we'll listen for the prelude and have some quiet time at the other spot. And we'll see you on the other side. If you have any questions or something, hit me up before I close the meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gretchen.
thanks for joining us. We had a record attendance this morning. I think I saw 23 people. So
Yeah.
That's great. See you in church.
Thank you.
Well, I didn't know we were going to be on next week.
Well, you didn't volunteer, I did. So sorry about that. He didn't volunteer, I did. So if we get him roped in, fine. If we don't, I can talk forever, you know.
Phyllis, are you suggesting that we Zoom and I record you?
Yes.
Okay.
So let's talk about that and see if we can't work that out.
Yeah.
That way you can make sure that it's recorded.
Yeah, right.
So-
Yeah, it's recording now, even though I'm host. Dana clicked save. So I'm a little nervous about getting out of it, but I have a feeling it'll be safe because she saved it in the cloud. So we're going to be all right.
Okay. Well,
All right.
We'll just figure out a time that's convenient for you and for me as well. And
Yeah.
Dave, if he wants to hang around.
I'll make sure I'm available.
You bring the popcorn, all right, brother?
Well, now, Dave, I talked to Dave about doing this, so he's official too.
Yeah. Well, they've been lasting about 41 minutes. You know, the actual dialogue, the actual conversation of the participants, and then leaving room for chatting, just allowing for, you know, me letting folks in and people working out their glitches. And so something like that. If anybody ever asked you, it's about 40 minutes. You can go all day if you want. Well, I don't know how to edit, so.
I will not cut into the church time, I promise.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Well, I'm going to hang it up and see you over in the
See you
quasi
later.
sanctuary. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, Charlotte and Marlene, we'll need you to head on over to the other room. And I'm glad you were able to join us. Dana, you are now the host. And I know you're not there. You're probably in sanctuary. So, but I'm going to leave it up because I'm afraid of dropping the call. So I'm just going to reduce my screen. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.